Hey there everyone, it's Julie again. Today I'm going to make a video for you to just talk candidly about my experience so far of being on submission to publishers. A lot of people who are pursuing agency representation or have already found an agent but haven't started the submissions process yet have been curious about what that's like, what it entails, how exactly it works, so I figured I would just share my experience and try to shed a little bit of light on what this process looks like. Now for me, my agent and I have a very good relationship. We can be very communicative and frank with each other, and not everyone really has that kind of relationship with their agent, but I think that if you can possibly sign with an agent that you do feel comfortable talking to, that is always the best option. Not everyone has, a choice about who offers them representation, but you should always feel comfortable being able to ask questions and to speak honestly with the person who is representing your work. Because they're going to be your go-between between you and the publisher, so you always want to make sure that you feel okay about sharing how you're feeling with that person. So in my case, it was never an issue because I do have a good connection with my agent, Michelle. And at the beginning, what we did was we looked at my query letter, we looked at some of the information that I had written about the book that we were pitching, and we kind of put together cooperatively a little package that she would be sending out to editors at the publishers. And for the most part, it was stuff that I had written and she had rearranged and revised, and she added a little bit of her own information to it. And at that point, she starts looking through Publishers Marketplace and looking through her own connections and people that she's personally spoken to. And she tries to think about which editors at which publishers would be perfect for the kind of book that I wrote. And then she tries to make the connections. Usually it's through sending an email, sending a letter. Some agents will do phone calls, and a few of the connections that have resulted in full manuscript requests for me from publishers they came out of Michelle actually having a personal connection with that editor through conference contacts, or through, in one case it was actually through Twitter. Sometimes editors on Twitter will be talking about what sorts of books that they're looking for their manuscript wish list. There's a hashtag manuscript wish list, and some agents are using it, some editors are using it, and I actually got a request through a Twitter hashtag like that. If that actually results in a book deal for me, I promise I'll never bash Twitter again. I've sometimes been guilty of bashing Twitter because it's so cramped with 140 characters, and I'm not a concise person, so a little good-natured bashing has come out of my mouth now and then for Twitter, but I'll never do it again if I get a book deal from that connection. Anyway, there are lots of ways that agents can gather information and figure out which editors are best for their clients' work, but in my case it's just come through a collection of different options, different avenues. Now, what normally happens is she'll contact those editors and then they can reply or not. Sometimes, just like agents, if they don't respond to something, you can assume that's a no, or you can assume that that person maybe isn't doing the job they used to be doing. Maybe they've moved on from it. Maybe they've just gotten overwhelmed with new clients and they don't want to look at any new manuscripts right then. It's really just kind of the luck of the draw, but so there are editors who just never answer. In most cases for me, they have responded, and oddly enough, looking at the pitches that my agent has done, it seems like most of the people she has asked did say they were interested. I've had quite a few full manuscript requests from publishers. I don't want to discuss the specifics because that's probably bad to have on the internet as to, who's saying what. But of course, I have also had rejections too. And in most cases, the publishers have been very graceful about explaining why they decided not to make an offer on my book. I've gotten some extensive feedback in some cases where they tend to compliment my writing, but usually will say that for whatever reason they don't think that it will fit into their line. And, that's always disappointing, especially since it takes a long time to go from submission to waiting for them to read it to waiting for them to respond. Sometimes it can really just make you want to tear your hair out. In any case, so far the longest that I've been waiting for a response from a publisher who requested my book is 8 months, and I'm still waiting on that one, actually. I hope that will change soon. However, I have heard of positive responses from publishers who considered something for more than 15 months before saying yes, so it's not completely unusual, and let's face it, publishing is kind of a glacial industry. Anyway, what else can I say? When something happens with one of my letters resulting in a full manuscript request and then eventually resulting in a rejection, that means that my agent could look at other editors at different imprints of the same parent company. So, as you probably know, there are, it's a little inaccurate to say that there are really 5 major ones, but a lot of people throw around that number of the big 5, and what that means is that, there are dozens and dozens of publishers that are imprints of those major 5 companies, but you want to make sure that you don't have a manuscript in consideration by 2 imprints that are owned by the same company, because ultimately what you'd like to happen is have one publisher make you an offer and then have the other publishers be notified that this one has given you an offer, and then they can decide whether they want to match that offer or whether they're going to give up on it. And if you have more than one publisher that ends up wanting your book, they're going to have to fight over it, and you're not going to have people fighting inside of one publisher. That would just be really impractical to try to get 2 people who are technically from the same company on board trying to fight over one author. So that is something that you want to watch. So, but your agent should know those things. They should know which imprints belong to which parent companies. So, then of course there are publishers that don't belong to those major 5 publishers. It used to be Big 6, but Random House and Penguin merged to become Penguin Random House. We were all kind of hoping that it would be Random Penguin, because that's funny, but apparently the people in charge of the branding did not think that was a wise choice. I'm sad. But anyway, sometimes when I get a request from an editor, I will look around the internet and try to see if that editor has done any interviews, or if they have a Twitter account. I might go check them out and see what kind of stuff they have to say. Maybe fall in love with them a little bit and cross my fingers and hope we're going to be working together. Now, I don't know very much at this point about the next stage of the game, because I have yet to have an offer made on any of my books. So, I'm sure that I will be able to share some more information about that when it happens. I'm saying when. But I do know that different publishers have different processes, and that if an editor likes your stuff at a really big company like the large publishers that we're pitching, you're not gonna have the decision made by one person. If that editor likes it, or more likely, maybe their intern likes it, you're gonna have to have your manuscript shared by other editors. They'll put it through other readers. More than likely, there will be several people who read the book before they decide to take it to a meeting or, talk about the marketing and whatnot. And your agent may or may not be able to find out where in the process you are if it's gotten past a first reader. They may want to share that, they may not. It sometimes depends on just how secretive the publishers are, and it sometimes depends on your agent's relationship personally with those editors. So, at that point, you're eventually going to hear through your agent whether they're making you an offer, and that can go in a bunch of different ways. I've heard of a bunch of different processes for that to be revealed to the agent and then to the author. In any case, it is ultimately the author's decision as to whether to sign those papers. It's not, the agent isn't going to be signing papers for you. Now, sometimes this is kind of a tricky business, trying to figure out which publisher is best for a book, because, unfortunately, as I've actually found in a couple of the situations where my book did get turned down, a publisher will say they don't want to take the project on because it's too similar to something that they already have. And, you would think that the best thing to do would be to look for a publisher who is publishing similar material. But if it's too similar, it seems like they don't have a hole for it. They just decide that they don't want something that's too much like a title that they already have or a series they already have. So that can get you in trouble. So overall, I've been very happy with my experience being on submission. It's very exciting to think that, like, the biggest publishers in the world are reading my little book, and if they like it, they may end up publishing it, and it's going to be in bookstores and whatnot. So knowing that chance is out there and that I might get that phone call tomorrow it's very exciting, but it's also really stressful. And for me, that has kind of manifested in not wanting to do any writing. And I know that is, it's really counterproductive. I mean, I even give the advice that you should start your next project if you're having submission anxiety. And I don't know, it's not really that I have submission anxiety, although there is some anxiety attached to it. It's just I just don't feel like doing it right now, and so I haven't written a new novel in a little over a year. I've written some little things, though. I've written a little bit of short stories, and I did work on my nonfiction because it seemed like that used a different place in my brain, so I focused on that, and then of course I ended up getting signed for that one too, and that one's on submission, so I'm kind of in the same situation. I kind of feel like I am spinning my wheels a little bit, but I'm still creating lots of content. I'm still doing webcomics, and I'm still blogging, doing videos, and I'm still being very creative. I just kind of don't seem to be able to get in the zone for writing more creative material in the novel sense. And it's not because I've tried and failed to do it. It's just I'm just not in that headspace. And I think that it does have something to do with the anxiety. It's pretty consuming sometimes, and a little frustrating. And it seems like it's been stretching on for a really long time. And I'm sorry that I don't have better news for some of you who are looking to be in my position someday. But I can say that I have friends and I have acquaintances who have gone on submission and their books sold in a matter of weeks. So it's not always like this. I think that my experience is more typical, unfortunately, but you do hear about people making sales very quickly. So It really is, it's the luck of the draw. It's really a crapshoot as to how fast it's gonna sell. And when you hear all these stories about things like how many times Harry Potter was rejected, you can't think, hey, I'm signed to an agent, but I'm getting rejected by all the publishers. Maybe it's never going to sell. Okay, well, maybe it never will, but just because you're getting some rejections does not mean that you're never going to make it. Because if J.K. Rowling had given up after getting a couple of rejections, we never would have had the huge sensation that is Harry Potter. So at this point, I do have more interested publishers currently reading than I have received rejections on full manuscripts. So I think that that's pretty good. So overall, it's been really exciting, and it's not overwhelmingly stressful. So I would say that I'm really enjoying some of the anticipation. So those of you who are looking forward to it, it can be kind of a twisted sort of fun. So and if you have any other questions about the submission process, or any specifics that you want to know about my journey that I didn't cover in this, I'd be glad to answer you either in the comments or privately through YouTube messages. I will not be publicly posting any stats about who we are querying and who's considering the book, but I can share general ideas. And that's about it for me. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.